It's Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day, and I'm so over it. Um, these little courtyard pillar pots have been the bane of my existence almost since day one. I want them to be symmetrical. I plant them symmetrically, and invariably this situation occurs. Now, I had my theories as to why one pot would bolt and the other wouldn't. I thought it was maybe a microclimatic or exposure thing. So the pot, exhibit A, that was sitting here always seemed to grow faster and flourish more so than the pot that was here. So I switched them last time. I redid this pot and I moved it from its home here, put it here, put this guy over here. And I was clearly wrong in my assessment of the situation because this pot, it's grown, but not even close to the rate that this one has. So then it occurred to me that maybe, you know how I'm always using random soil, whatever I have on hand? Maybe this got planted in Miracle Grow, although I never buy that, but maybe, for example, I'm using canned soil this time if I need fresh soil. That's nursery soil that may have had fertilizer in it. So I don't know, guys, but this is a hot mess. It's run amok, and it's time to start over. So that's what I'm going to do. I am going to rework this pot. I mean, seriously, look at this. This is what bugs me about it. I love this crassula, but it's too big. It's too overwhelming. This sticks on fire in a pot. I don't want it rooting because it will take over everything and suck all of the energy right out of the pot. And all of these little sedums and, little rosettes are leggy and going everywhere. So just for me, I mean, it's subjective, but I don't love this at all. So I want this to be a little more contained and controlled looking. So what you do in this situation, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to start by cutting all of these plants. These are little ghosties that are run amocking and hanging over the edge of the pot with their stems exposed. We're going to get all of these cut off because what I'm going to find, I think, when I'm ready to pull this apart is that this pot is probably going to come out in one fell swoop, meaning that the root ball is probably so tight that it's just going to come out in the shape of the pot. That would be my expectation. And I don't want to lose any of these pretty rosettes, so I'm cutting them out and moving them aside right now so I don't break any off or cause any damage when I yank. Look at the spread ives. That's funny. So huge. Gave me a baby. That's nice. Thank you. And then here's some little Aeonium Kiwi. I'm going to cut that right here so I can replant this whole thing rather than cutting off each individual little piece. I'll plant the whole little thing. Ugh. God. What a mess. So much going on in this pot. Boom. Boom. Oh, there is nothing more gratifying than what I am doing now. And with these stems, as we've discovered on Walkabout Wednesday, we will get new growth, most likely, on these stems. So all of the stems that are left can be preserved and potted up and put in your garden of death. And you can await resurrection because they will probably spring forth. Okay, so I've got all the little pretty things cut off. What's left now is this Echeveria Sahara, the crassula that ate Chula Vista, and the sticks on fire. That's pretty much all I can see that's in here that's left. So let's see what happens. I'm going to pull on this Fred Ives trunk. Yep, look at that. There we go. Came out in one big ball. So we're going to start over here with fresh soil. I'm gonna, you know, it's also, you got to think about what time of the year it is. You have to think about what your exposure is. These get pretty much full sun. It is currently early June, and we are coming into hotter months. So I think I want to take this Echeveria with some of its roots. I don't want to replant this as a cutting because I'm afraid it's going to burn. But now you're seeing why I love to work with cuttings, because this is taking a lot of time and effort to get this thing out of here with roots attached. Thank goodness for my handy dandy multi-tool. It's not, seriously guys, this is not even budging. Come on. Now all of this, you know, the roots and stems, you can throw those aside to deal with later. Get stuff out of your way so you can see what you are doing. Okay, I think I got it. Yep, there we go. All right. All right, there's our little Sahara with a nice tidy little root ball left. And, oh, looky here. I've got some regular crassula. Probably was using that as a filler. Okay. Now, I also am going to take these crassulas and rework those in as cuttings. This here in San Diego is a really tough plant, and I don't need to worry about it burning or dying when it starts to get warm. Here, we can't kill this stuff, but I really like it. I like the texture and the toughness of it and the strength of it. Some of these smaller pieces, I'm probably not going to put back in this pot because, remember, the crassula took over the pot. Visually, it was just, so I'll only use I'll use a smaller portion of crassula when I replant than I did originally. Okay, now the sticks on fire. Ugh. All right, that's, I mean, it's a really nice piece. It's a very nice, see, look at that. It's a nice specimen, but it's also, you know, has a very aggressive root system. So what I'm going to do, here's that Fred Ives roots and stem. I'm going to try to get a little closer to exposing the roots on this so that I can just take it as a cutting. Ha, that felt great. Yep, there we go. Okay, so here is, well, how about that? That looks a lot more manageable, doesn't it? Now remember, with Euphorbia Tirukali, you have to be very careful not to let that white sticky sap make contact with your skin because it can irritate. And you definitely don't want to get it in your eyes, okay? Or in your orifice for that matter. See how it's dripping? Look at that. Yeah, so we want to be careful not to touch the sap. And I think that will do it. I won't put any more sticks on fire back in this pot. So the rest of this can be moved elsewhere in my garden. And therefore, I am now ready to commence with resetting my plants and making this arrangement all over again. Now, remember, if you live in a place that is not within a 30-mile, or I should say 20-mile radius of my home in East Chula Vista, only do this if your arrangement is going to go into filtered sun or an area that gets morning sun and afternoon shade, or just wait until fall when the temperatures drop. The hottest part of summer is typically not the time that you want to be working with cuttings. For most of you. See, yes, this can of soil has been in my garage for, ooh, look, a plant. Hey, look at that. Cool. This has been in the garage for months, and look at that, buried in dirt. It's perfectly fine. Not months, like weeks, days, weeks. Weeks? Days. Okay, it's been in for days, but I still don't understand this, how this came to be in this pot. This must be dirt that we swept up, right, from a maintenance or a installation. But it looks really, really clean and healthy. It's got a nice scent to it. It's very much alive. When you fill your pots with soil, make sure that you tamp the soil down really well before you start planting. Okay? If you don't, all the soil is going to sink in the pot, and within 3 months, your arrangement's going to be halfway down in the pot. No fun. Okay, I want to remember that I do have a plant with roots. Okay, my beautiful Euphorbia Tirukali, which I'm going to plant along the side of this pot so it can be front and center. I think this plant's going to continue to get bigger, especially now that I have given it a chance, given the roots a chance to spread. All right. Another fun thing about working with cuttings is how close you can pack them all in together, and how it's like candles on a birthday cake. It's just the funnest, most fun thing that you can do is working with cuttings. You can put them exactly where you want them. You can move them around. If you don't like them in one place, you can put them in another. Ugh. Okay. So, in other news, Hannah and our wonderful employee who's like a son to us, Cullen, lost their lease on their condo. They were roommates, and they lost their lease on their condo in Oceanside. So Hannah's moving back home until she can, get her bearings and figure out her next moves. So I'm super excited about that. Okay. All right. Here is my thriller, my Euphorbia Tirukali. Remember what I always say, if your succulent stands up, you've done your job. So I'm going to plant that. I know, I always say, things should be slightly left or right of center, but in this particular case, because of everything that I'm going to have going on in this pot, I'm going to plant my Tirukali pretty much right smack dab in the center. Then I'm going to take, my larger, more visually obvious plants like this Sahara and this Crassula and this Fred Ives, and those are going to go in next. So I'm going to do the Crassula right up against this Sticks on Fire. I mean, tight, tight, tight. No dirt showing. I don't plan on top dressing this pot with anything because my goal is to have it packed full of plants. Oh, that looks great. I'm really happy with how that looks. Then I'm going to take my Fred Ives and I'm going to remove these leaves that look kind of crappy. Just going to crack those off while I'm in the neighborhood. And this is the time also to look at your plant, check for mealybug, check for aphids, check for, any kind of pest or disease. She looks pretty clean. There's some spider webs. You can clean those off. To bloom or not to bloom, I like to let the blooms go until they're done so that the bees and the butterflies and the hummingbirds can take advantage of the nectar. But also remember that it does take a lot of energy for the mom to provide for that bloom. And if you do have issues with aphids, this is where they're going to attack first, is in that bloom. So use your discretion. Here in beautiful land of milk and honey, I'm going to let that bloom ride. And I'm going to tuck that little Fred Ives right in there. Let's see, I think I want the bloom, yeah, I want the bloom pointing up though. I'm not going to want that bloom hanging over the edge of the pot. So there are 4 elements in this pot now. Look how great it looks. And now for the fun part. The rest of the pot, I can just tuck in all of these cutesy little rosettes. I'm going to add a little more soil for reasons that I explained earlier. Tomorrow we break ground on a xeriscape in Lakeside. So that's going to be super exciting. You know how much I love doing xeriscapes. I got the plants for this one from Sun Valley Nurseries in San Marcos. They are huge and gorgeous. We're going to get some giant rocks, boulders from KRC. I'm going to be mounding with, how many yards of soil, Greg, did I end up with? 30 yards of soil. It's going to be pretty amazing. This property is actually a home that the clients built on their property, and they're going to be renting out this adorable house. It's a brand new build. And I'm so tickled that they care so much about this rental that they're hiring me to do the landscape. So it's pretty special, and it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to take you on the ride with that one. Aeonium Kiwi, one of my favorites. This one doesn't tend to go as dormant as some Aeoniums in the summer, so it's a fave. And this is where you can just have so much fun and just start tucking things in. This is the point too where I'll take off my gloves because I really want to touch the plants. You know, you don't really need to know much about succulents to do succulent arrangements. Just have fun with it and put things where you think they look good. Because, I mean, this is at least the 3rd time I've redone this pot. At least. I mean, maybe I may have redone it even more. So remember, it's not forever. These, whatever it is that you do, you can change it anytime you want. So have fun with this. I am not thinking at all about what I'm doing. I'm just cramming plants in this pot. That is my method. I hope you all have a pen and paper handy and you could jot that down. You know, I do instinctually though know, you know, like how these plants are going to grow and what to expect from them. And so I am just kind of instinctually putting some of the ones that I know are going to get bigger more toward the back, and some of the ones that I know aren't going to get as big closer to the front. Also, when you work with your cuttings, you know, cut the cuttings off at different sizes so you can have some visual interest in your arrangements too. You don't want everything exactly at the same level. You want some a little low, some sticking up a little higher. Wow, it looks like I'm going to have some leftover plants, which is really, well, maybe not. I got all this here. And that's another thing. If you don't want to fill your pot completely with plants, if you'd like to see a little bit, you know, of exposed area, you can top dress with fiberglass or pebble or rock or seashells or whatever your heart desires. You don't necessarily have to fill the pot full of plants. That is completely up to you and your preference. Remember also that when you are backfilling your plants, you want to cram them in really tight because these are cuttings, because of the time of year. These plants, these cuttings are going to shrink up because in order to establish a new root system, they are going to have to pull moisture and nutrients from those fat leaves. That's why we call them succulents, from the trunks and the leaves, in order to establish that new root system. So my plants are going to get smaller before they get bigger. Another reason why we want to cram them in really tight. I even love the way they feel. When we were up at the ranch for a couple of weeks, I missed my little stress balls. I missed feeling my little succulent plants. I just love it. I've got orange, I've got blue, I've got pink, I've got yellow and green and purple. So fun. Ooh, that's a cool one. That's just really cute. Really stressed, but very cute. I'm going to tuck that in here. I promise this is the most fun I've had all day, and this will be the most fun you will have too. So just keep stuffing, guys. You know, remember, if your succulent stands up, you've done your job. So stuff, stuff, stuff. You cannot overdo it. As long as your succulent makes contact with the soil, you are good to go. I'm going to put a little more under this Sahara leaf, and then I'm going to tuck some of these little guys in there. Wow. Fun. I really wasn't sure if I would have enough plant material if I didn't use, you know, all of that sticks on fire, and I didn't use all of the crassula. But look at me. I got plenty. Okay, I think I'm done. And I also think that my leftovers I can put in this pot over here. So I'll set those aside. Then I have, you know, all of my stem props and rooted plants to find new homes for. So again, you know, succulents are the gift that keeps on giving. When I reworked this pot, I ended up with additional plant material to use in other places in the garden. So let me set this up here for you to see. There we go. Now, as far as watering, I'm not going to water this for a while because, well, I might give this Sahara a little water because it's rooted. But all of these cuttings, they're not going to be able to take in any water until they've reestablished some roots. So it's going to be a couple of weeks. I would really, really recommend, again, anyone that lives in an area where it's going to get a little toasty, to put your fresh cutted arrangements in the shade or semi-shade, just to give them a chance to reestablish before, you know, they get put back out in the elements. So these look, let me see here. Yeah, I mean, they look a little more compatible. This one is like the redheaded stepchild over here. Still doesn't look as great as this, mainly because I've got this big, gorgeous Echeveria Sahara in this pot, and I don't have any big rosette in this pot. This is mainly just a bunch of smaller things. So if I really want them to be more symmetrical, I need to find a bigger rosette to put in this pot too. So stay tuned. I'm not going to do that right now, but I bet I won't have to look too far in the back garden to find what I am looking for. So maybe that'll be a tip for another day. But stay tuned and stay with me because we'll see how this works, and I will also keep you posted as the weather warms up as to how this is doing. We'll watch it together to be sure that it's not going to get too hot, get too much sun, or wither away. So that was fun. I hope you enjoyed that little potting demonstration as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you all so much for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for liking and sharing this video. And thank you for buying the drip. We got some new swag in the shop, and it's going like hotcakes. Happy Pride, everybody. This has been Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day. Bye, guys.